In this video, we're going to go over the best watches that I've ever reviewed throughout my entire career on YouTube. Welcome back to the Chisholm Hunter channel. My name is Harrison, as always. And today we're going over all the best watches that I've reviewed throughout my entire career on YouTube. I am getting old, I have to say it. I've been on YouTube now for 2.5, 3 years, and I've had some pretty incredible watches in my hands in the studio, and these are the best watches that I have reviewed. I've got about 15 models and I'm saving the best until last. At number 15, we have a model that shook up the industry when it was released. Back then, I say back then, it was only a year ago, but back a year ago, you couldn't really get an affordable 70s inspired AP looking design. It just wasn't really in the scene. The Christopher Ward 12 hadn't really come to the surface yet. So when the Tissot PRX Powermatic 80 was released, it made huge waves in the industry and huge waves on our channel. If you look at our most viewed videos on the channel, you'll see that it's dominated by a lot of PRXs. The PRX just gave people the option to get an affordable 70s inspired watch, where before it was totally out of reach. I mean, you have the AP Royal Oak, the Vacheron Constantin Overseas, the Patek Philippe Nautilus, all of which I'll never be able to afford. So that's why I love the PRX so much. It made something that was previously inaccessible accessible. It comes in at 40mm in diameter. It's pretty damn thin with that Powermatic 80 movement in there. And although this is an ETA movement, that does not mean it's bad. I've said so many different times. ETA movements, although mass-produced, are mass-produced for a reason. They're tried, they're tested, and they are great movements. It has that waffle dial, giving it a little bit more depth. And although the finishing's not amazing because it's cheaper, it is a Tissot, it is mass-produced, for the money, it's brilliant. Now, since the success of the first launch of the PRX, they've kind of gone mental and released tons of different colors, tons of different variations. And I have to say, when I got this on the wrist, in the studio, it was just one of those watches that was my favorite to review. It had such an impact on the industry at the time. At number 14, we have kind of a controversial one. At Watches and Wonders 2023, everyone was scrambling to get footage and pictures and close to the Blancpain 54, the new Blancpain that was released. Whereas I kind of lurked in the background and was taking pictures of something else. It was the Blancpain GMT Opaline dial. This thing to me was almost perfection. The Blancpain GMT Opaline dial was really, really striking to me. I mean, that red and blue aluminium disc bezel combined with the kind of, you know when you squeeze toothpaste and it's that metallic-y, beautiful, white, silvery kind of color, that's what this dial looks like. It's not pure white, it's really beautiful and it flows and moves in the light. And that's why I was so infatuated with it. That combined with the fact that I just love white dials. It has pretty much the same specs as the previous GMT that comes in black. It comes in at 41mm and also shares the same movement. With that said, it does come in at 15mm in thickness, which is pretty thick, probably a little bit more thick than I would want. However, what a striking, stunning watch. It takes everything that's boring and maybe a little bit plain for me on the original Tudor Blancpain GMT, and with that dial, it just spices it up. It adds an extra pop, and that's why it made the list. Coming in at number 13, we have kind of a weird one, because it's not often that I get this brand behind the lens, but when I do get them behind the lens, the quality just always shocks me. This is the JLC Polaris coming in with a beautiful blue dial. This is one of the first JLCs that I ever reviewed on the channel. It's one of the first JLCs that I ever got in my hands. And honestly, the quality of this thing just was infatuating to me. The finishing was second to none. And this is one of the first times that I've experienced true luxury finishing. Not luxury finishing like you'd find on other brands, maybe below the £4,000 mark, but true luxury finishing. And the fact that I could feel that difference really just hit it home for me. That combined with the fact that I couldn't stop playing with that interior rotating bezel, I thought that was super cool. It comes in at 41mm, has an 11.2mm thickness, which means it's very, very thin and sits really closely to the wrist. And also the dial was in this beautiful blue color, not to mention the movement, because the movement is stunning. But if I were to talk about that, I'd be here all day. It wouldn't be a list, it'd be a review. So let's move on. Before we move on to number 12, I realized that 82% of you that watch these videos haven't yet subscribed to the channel. If you could do me a huge, huge favor, watch nerd nerd to watch nerd, watch lover to watch lover, and hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Next on the list, coming in at number 12, we have the Hamilton Khaki Field Expedition. And yes, I know it's becoming a bit like my Seamaster, I talk about it that much, but hear me out. This release did make huge ripples in the industry, and also it modernized what had been a tried and tested brilliant field watch in the Hamilton Khaki Field Mechanical. I mean, they updated the movements, they did a couple of things with the bezel, adding a compass to the bezel, and although that works, you're probably never going to use it, it was just super cool, and I loved the story behind it. I loved the expedition style that they were going for, and that resonated with me. I mean, in my life, I do a huge amount of hiking, a huge amount of Munros, and a lot of exploring around my home country, which is Scotland. Not to mention the 37mm variant, because there's two variants, the 37 and the 41. The 37mm variant in white with a green NATO strap looks, honestly, jaw-dropping. For the price, it's amazing. At number 11, we have a new watch for me, and actually, we're reviewing it today. It is an IWC model. This is the IWC Type XX, coming in at 40mm, coming in at about 10.8mm in thickness. Honestly, when I got this on the wrist, I was kind of blown away at how much I liked it. If I'm totally honest, I kind of got it in to kind of crap on it. This Mark XX, it's not Type XX, it's Mark XX, honestly made me love blue dials again. It made me fall back in love with something that I previously kind of didn't like. And the way that it sits on the wrist and catches the light is just beautiful. And that's a prime example of you can never judge a watch by an image on a screen. You have to try it on, because after I tried this on, I was blown away. At number 10, we have a watch that you guys cannot get anymore. You can't try it on anymore. It is discontinued. It is gone. It is finito, unfortunately. It's very, very sad because it was one of my favorite watches of all time. I'm going to say that. I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to put it live on the internet just so I can get shot for it later. But I honestly think it was. It is the Omega CK859. This watch had a really short production life of about 2 years before Omega quietly discontinued it. It comes in at 39mm, is one of the best dress watches I've ever seen. I mean, even the Omega logo is in this kind of more classic vintage looking font. It looks unbelievable. It looks vintage, but it's new. It's a really weird combination. Now, yeah, the leather straps, not for me, if I'm totally honest, but you can't deny that the watch itself is stunning. One last thing that I love about this watch before I move on, and I have to say it because it's just amazing. This watch has a manual wound movement that is totally visible through the case back and looks stunning. And manual wound movements are a bit like manual cars. They're kind of dying off. They're a dying breed. Although I felt like when I had a manual car, I had so much more of a connection to my car. I got more excited to get in my car. Whereas now I just hit cruise control and kind of forget I'm there. I preferred the latter. The Longines Hydra Conquest GMT is the next watch on the list, coming in at number 9. This is a super sexy model, and what I loved about this watch is that it took so many features that we weren't too keen on from the last Hydra Conquest and upgraded them. It fixed them. It listened to us, the watch enthusiasts. For example, the clasp got updated, the bezel got updated, a ton of stuff on the face got updated. It honestly is a super sexy looking watch, and it is a fully functional diver. It comes in at 41mm and comes in different colors depending on what you want. I mean, there's a green, there's a blue, there's a black. They are just brilliant watches. And Longines is a brand with the Conquest chronograph and the new GMT and just the Conquest. They've been smashing it recently, and no one can deny that. Number 8 is the Omega Speedmaster Moonshine Gold, 18 karat Moonshine Gold edition. And we actually reviewed this watch with the rubber strap. And honestly, just feeling the weight of the head of this watch, looking into the beautiful movement in the back, thinking about the history of the Moonwatch, that was wild. Now, yes, this watch is very expensive, but you're kind of paying for the metal as well. I mean, it is 18 karat Moonshine Gold, which is exclusive to Omega. It's patented by Omega, and it has kind of a paler hue to it than normal gold. And over time, it doesn't lose its luster as fast as normal traditional 18 karat gold. Now there's tons of flecks and flares that I love about this watch. I love the history. I love that on the rubber strap, the interior to the rubber strap, you actually see the surface of the moon. They have taken that time over the rubber strap. It comes in at 42 millimeters and has a gold dial with black subdials and a black tachymetric scale or tachymetric scale around the outside. There were so much cool things that I learned about this watch, or so many cool things that I learned about this watch. And honestly, it's just something that we'll never get back in. And getting that in and having the trust of reviewing a £30,000 watch, yeah, that blew my mind. At number 7, we have a unique watch that not many people know about. And not many people know that we've reviewed because we had to remove the video. But it is the Blancpain 50 Fathoms NORAD Limited Edition. Now, this is super interesting to me. Back in the day, they used to use tritium on their looms. A lot of brands did it, Panerai, Rolex, etc., etc. And tritium was obviously a radioactive substance. So what they then did is switched over to normal superluminova from tritium. And to show the divers that the watch they were wearing wasn't radioactive, they had a no radiation sign in the middle. What Blancpain did is brought that back with future iterations, or the current iterations, with the NORAD additions. So you actually have like a nuclear waste sign on the dial with a big X through it. Is that not just awesome? If you play COD, you'll love it. This watch specifically comes in at 40.3 millimeters in diameter, making the face of this watch a little bit smaller, which is brilliant for us small guys. And obviously, people in the industry are going smaller now. It's kind of what they want. Blancpain as a brand are very traditional. They're very black and white, and they've earned their name in the industry for being that way. I mean, they're the oldest watch brand in the world, not in continuous production, that goes to Vacheron, but they are the oldest watch brand in the world, so no wonder they act like that. So to have a watch with this much fun in it is just really special. Now, these are sold out, and you probably can't get them at all anymore, but if you were to buy it new, it would come in at about £14,200. Coming in at number 6, we have the Vacheron Constantin, the VC overseas. And I'm just going to kind of refer to the whole category here because they're all absolutely stunning. Now, when we first started the channel, Vacheron was always kind of the pinnacle for me. It was always the brand that I wanted to film. And we went to the Chisholm Hunter boutique in Edinburgh, and we went upstairs to the champagne bar, and we brought all our lights and our kind of equipment. We drove through in the morning, and Vacheron, who are right next door to the Chisholm Hunter boutique, gave us a couple of models to film. We had to be very careful, very delicate with said models, and honestly, just filming these watches, getting them on the wrist, it shows you what true luxury watches feel and look like. It was amazing. At number 5, we have the Zenith Chronomaster Sport White Dial, the fun version of the Daytona, the colorful version of the Rolex Daytona. Now, a lot of people in the industry actually say that Zenith copied Rolex with the Daytona. But actually, if you look back far enough, you'll see that Zenith were there way before Rolex were. And actually, the Rolex iterations that came out after the Zenith iterations came out were pretty damn similar. Now, yes, both brands have their separate DNA. I'm not saying that anyone copied anyone here, because both brands have their unique ways of doing it. But yeah, it's an interesting thing to look at. Anyway, on with the watch. Honestly, this Zenith Chronomaster Sport, when it first came out, shocked me. I mean, the colors on the subdials. You have a blue subdial, a dark gray, a kind of light silvery one, and then you have a white face, and also a black ceramic bezel. It's almost like Zenith had something with the original Chronomaster. They had an ember. They started fanning the embers, and all of a sudden, like a phoenix from the fire, the Chronomaster Sport emerged. This watch uses Zenith's in-house El Primero movement, which you can see through the case back. And Zenith's movements historically have always been incredible. They've always been amazing, to the point that Rolex actually used to use Zenith's movements in their Daytona. Daytona? Did I say Daytona? Daytona. At number 4, we have the Longines Conquest Chrono. And talk about a sexy, affordable Daytona-esque watch. Longines just crushed it this year. It was so good. Now, this watch does come in a couple of different variations. You can get a silver, a black, or a gold champagne kind of color. Now, although the gold champagne kind of color looks weird online, please try it on. It's one of my favorites. I didn't expect it to be my favorite, but it seriously was. This watch comes in at 42mm in diameter, looks so sporty, so futuristic, and also is relatively affordable, coming in at £3,500. Now, yes, I think it comes in at £3,550 actually. But yes, I know that that's a lot of money, but for the watches that we're talking about, comparing it to the Zenith Chronomaster Sport coming in at almost 10 grand, and then you've got the Rolex Daytona coming in above that, it's not bad. Coming in at number 3, 1, 2, 3, third place, is the Vacheron Constantin Overseas, but it has a tourbillon and it's in titanium, the tourbillon titanium. This watch comes in around about £100,000, and Vacheron sent it out to me to review, and oh my sweet mother of God, the movement in this watch, just look at this. I've always been obsessed with skeletonized watches, looking into the intricacies of the dial, looking into the engine and mechanics of how everything fits together. My brain can't understand it, but I like to look at it. And actually, the first watch I ever got was an Oris. It was an open Oris where you could see into it, a skeletonized Oris. Then the next watch I got was a Rado, which I sold, but it was a Rado that you could see into as well. It had a mother of pearl film across it, but you could still see into it. And that's what I loved about this watch. It wasn't just the fact you're getting a Vacheron Constantin model. It was the fact that it was a Vacheron Constantin model naked. The titanium on this model made it super, super lightweight on the wrist and gave it kind of a darker feel, a darker aesthetic. And I'll just never be able to recreate the feeling of having this watch on my wrist and the excitement of being able to try this watch on or even review it. Now, to top off, you've got that tourbillon in the middle spinning around, that beautiful piece of engineering. Yeah, that was a special day. At number 2, we have a watch that I've always wanted, I've saved up for, and I'll never get, because it's an AP Royal Oak, and I can't afford one. It is a white dial AP Royal Oak, and we reviewed this right when the channel was first beginning. I was beginning to show my face on the channel a little bit more all those years ago, and this was one of the first watches we got purely because I was obsessed with AP, and that's before the Tissot PRX, before the Christopher Ward 12, before there was affordable alternatives to that design. It is funny when you start moving up the ranks of watches and prices and you feel the build quality, the difference in the build quality. When you get this AP on the wrist, you'll notice that the links are a lot thicker. They're a lot more sturdy. The quality of metal used is better. The little details that you might have overlooked on a Tissot PRX, for example, are perfect on these other more expensive models. And it was just a great day. It was this is turning more into like a nostalgic watch video, but I'm okay with that. Coming in at number 1, in first place, there's only 3 of these watches in the world. Honestly, when I got this on the wrist, I was astounded that I even had the possibility to film it, never mind see it behind glass. It's honestly a museum piece. It is the first, the OG overseas Vacheron Constantin with the reference number 42040. Now, we had the silver variant, which is actually a left-hand drive, which makes it look a little bit strange, but because it's so unique, there was less made. And because there was less made, there's only 3 left in the world. It's just incredible to me to see the history of where Vacheron was with that overseas versus where they are now. The inspiration that continues to be drawn from the original models, and also this has all happened in a relatively short space of time on the grand scheme of things. It's pretty incredible. I'm so lucky. I honestly pinch myself every day when I think of the models that I've been able to review and get hands-on with, and a lot of it is down to you guys. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys real soon.